welcome to Good Game Spawn Point.
Has everyone been playing heaps of Spyro the Dragon this week?
Whoa, I'll take that as a yes. Coming up on the show, our verdict on the new Spyro Reignited Trilogy.
Spyro's gonna help us collect the talismans.
I am?
Yes. Plus, if there's something strange in your neighbourhood, watch our review of Ghostbusters World. And Gem investigates the growing Australian eSports scene.
It just shows how awesome eSports is, that it's becoming more of an accepted form of entertainment.
Oh, I bet it's on fire. Esports is so hot right now. Well, let's get the show ignited, yeah?
Gem, it's been almost 3 years since the hugely popular Pokemon Go got gamers outside exploring an augmented world on their mobile devices. And surprisingly, only a handful of games have attempted to copy this idea, with few reaching the same levels of success.
Well, now it's time to see if swapping out pocket monsters for ghosts and ghouls is the next big thing, as we charge up our proton packs and get bustin' in Ghostbusters World.
Ghostbusters World is a free-to-play exploration game for mobile that has you out exploring real-world streets for all manner of spectres and spooks. You navigate your newly recruited team member around a world map that uses your phone's GPS. And as you do so, all sorts of weird and wacky ghosts will appear randomly for you to zap, cap, and trap.
After coming face to face with one of these apparitions, you'll first need to drain it of its ectoplasmic energy. And you do this by blasting it with a proton stream, countering its attacks, and eventually dragging it into one of those classic Ghostbusters traps.
And voila, you've caught yourself a focused non-terminal repeating phantasm, or a class 5 full-roaming vapor.
It's a nasty one too.
Right from the start, I really enjoyed how involved you need to be in these battles. Along with juggling your health and a timer, stronger ghosts can break out of traps, so you'll need to wear them down first with a few boson bolts, or the occasional spectral slam. It feels like the right amount of gameplay to keep you on your toes instead of simply throwing out more traps. Plus, all the Ghostbusters weapons and gadgetry just make sense in this style of game.
Totally, and it looks especially cool when you choose that augmented camera view. This drops the ghosts into the real world. Just be careful not to spook your friends and co-workers. Watch out, Elliot!
I'm friendly those.
There's also a great variety in the design of all the ghosts you'll encounter too, ranging from classics like Slimer, an evil toaster, even a haunted toilet. No thanks. And this makes adding them to your collection all the more fun because catching ghosts is only half the game here.
Yes, as all the creepies you collect will then join your team, and you can level them up and fight them through various stages in the Ghost Dimension! Woo! These turn-based brawls send your selection of spectres up against waves of otherworldly opponents, unleashing either regular or special attacks. And these all have altering effects depending on each spirit's elemental base. Overall, the combat is pretty simple and can even be switched to auto and double speed for some of the easier fights. But you will need to direct later fights if you want to avoid a total team wipeout.
This additional game type is played out through a story campaign made up of comic cells and dialogue pop-ups, and also includes some iconic boss battles. Or you can choose to try and tackle Goz's Tower, which is a more direct wave mode. Overall, it's a much-needed second layer to this kind of mobile game. I have to say, I really enjoyed mixing up my ghost busting with some ghost brawling.
Me too, especially as each complements the other.
We should mention these spooky microtransactions. Regardless of which mode you're playing, you'll be constantly earning a mix of gems, PKE crystals, and coin currency, which can then be used to purchase and upgrade equipment, as well as level up your ghostly gang for tougher fights. Some of these can, of course, be purchased with real money as well, so be sure to check with any grown-ups if you're tempted to pay for a boost.
Good advice, Darren, but so far we haven't really found it necessary. As long as you're happy to grind through ghosts to level up, or wait for the occasional timer to earn more traps or phantom keys.
Plus, you can also spend that time travelling to dimensional doors, which earn you extra XP and resources while you wait. You can even drop a remote gate if there aren't any around. Also, I especially loved how your character turns into the Ecto-1 when you're travelling fast as a passenger in a vehicle.
It's a nice touch, isn't it? In fact, there are a lot of elements to this that feel far more thought out than in other explore and catch mobile games. But ultimately, Goose, the real question is, did Ghostbuster make you feel good?
Yeah, totally. In fact, Jem, I was surprised at how much I got into this. Ghostbusters World adds enough new game elements to the Go formula to make this feel like a worthwhile trip out to bust some pesky poltergeists. I'm giving it 3.5 out of 5 rubber chickens.
I agree. Including a story mode is a great way to break up the exploration and gives you something to play when you're not on the move too. And I really got attached to my little team of terrors. I'm also giving Ghostbusters World 3.5 out of 5 rubber chickens.
Oh, and final tip, maybe turn the game music down unless you want this stuck in your head all day. Hit it, Darren!
Busting makes me feel good. Busting makes me feel good. Busting makes me feel good.
Australia is well known as a sports-loving nation, so it's no surprise we're rapidly becoming a target to one of the fastest-growing sports in the world at the moment, eSports. eSports, or pro gaming, is set to generate over $1 billion globally by 2019, and it's already accepted as a legitimate sport in countries like South Korea, Japan, and the United States. And now in Australia, it looks like eSports is on the verge of exploding into mainstream sports. With eSports leagues popping up, stadiums set to be built, and billion-dollar sponsors flocking in, the professional sporting clubs from around the country are starting to take notice. None more so than the Adelaide Football Club, that last year became the first professional sports club in Australia to buy an eSports team when they purchased Legacy eSports. So I guess the big question is, why have the AFL Crows decided now to get into eSports?
We as a community club, we make money out of the fans coming to games, buying merchandise, we have partners and sponsors, we have events. We're kind of reaching our ceiling, and we have to actually look at how do we grow in the years to come. So we put on a whiteboard all the things that we could look at. And eSports was written up as an area of opportunity, and we said, well, we're a sporting club. We have fans and we entertain people. eSports is the same. And so we purchased Legacy, and then we've created a high school eSports tournament system called High School eSports League.
Hey guys, and welcome here. So now we're getting into the first round, this best of 5 series.
A participant in that league, and also one of the youngest members of Legacy, is Rocket League player Aiden, aka Delusion. How did you become an eSports athlete?
I originally was playing on a laptop when I first started playing Rocket League. I was decent for performance that the computer was allowing me to have, but eventually I built my own PC and got decent at the game. Legacy eSports picked me up eventually, and now I'm in a top 4 team and I'm just loving it.
For those like spawnlings who aren't familiar with what it means to be part of an eSports team, what does it mean to you to be a part of that team?
It's more than just playing computer games. There's interviews such as this one, there's media training, but a lot of it is practice. Like there's a lot of grinding, a lot of replay analysis, looking at games and just practicing with your teammates.
What does it mean for you to see the AFL getting into eSports?
As an eSports athlete, seeing the AFL get into it, it's just awesome. Seeing the scene develop and stuff, like Essendon are buying out a team, and especially Adelaide Crows buying out Legacy. I think it's a really big step for eSports, and I'm looking forward to see if other clubs come in and help out.
Get melted down, Claire! That was absolutely beautiful!
It just shows how awesome eSports is, and the fact that traditional sports, like the AFL, some of the AFL clubs, we're hearing that other traditional sports are getting involved. The FFA, the governing body of soccer in Australia, ran a very amazing, very successful E-League based on FIFA. They're about to start their second season. So it just means that it's becoming more of an accepted form of entertainment.
What was the thinking behind bringing eSports competitions in on a high school level?
Well, we're a big community club. We have members and fans and lots of people out in South Australia. But in terms of eSports, eSports is national and it's also international. And it's done on a digital platform. So creating the right tournament and then going out to teachers and schools, creation of teams and having a management of that we saw as really cool.
You've been competing in the High School E-League or HSEL. How's that been for you?
Oh, it's just awesome. It's really showing that eSports can be viewed as a sport or an activity, much like people play school basketball or school netball. There's an opportunity to play Rocket League or school eSports. So them bringing in the high school component to eSports is really important.
Do you think it's going to continue to grow now that we're seeing professional sporting clubs getting involved?
I definitely think that it's going to grow from here. It's a big step to have all these AFL clubs come into the scene and just help it grow and bring professionalism to it, so I'm excited to see how it goes.
In the future, however far that may be, do you see esports becoming as popular as traditional sports in Australia?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think it's going to take time. There are some great competitions with big fan bases, but what I do think is lots of young people are gaming, they're participating, they're watching, and their content and the way they consume is different.
Do you think we're going to see, like traditional sports events, packed out stadiums, people wearing the jerseys of their favourite players? Do you think we'll see something like that in the realm of esports in Australia?
I think we already are. I think we're seeing it on a scale that's probably not at the ANZ Stadium or the Marvel Stadium scale. It does happen around the world, but in terms of Australia, we're getting there. We're kind of at the 7 to 8 to 10,000 audience mark at the moment.
It really does feel like esports is right on the edge of busting into mainstream sports, but it still has a few hurdles to jump before it can get there. There are still those who refuse to see esports as a legitimate sport, and it's always difficult transitioning from the amateur level to being a professional mainstream sport. But that's why it's good to see established clubs getting involved. They've learnt the lessons, and they can use their experience to pull esports through this transition. Will they succeed? Well, we'll just have to wait and see what happens next.
Alrighty, Rugem, we've got a whole throng of questions here. What do you say we rustle up some good old-fashioned answers for them?
Sounds good. I love rustling things up, and I love throngs too, I think.
Me too. If it's wrong to love throngs, I don't want to be right. So let's kick things off on our rustling spree with this video from Oliver.
Hi GGSP, my name is Oliver. I have 2 questions for you. 1, what is your favourite Super Mario Smash Brother game? 2, what game is good on the Wii U? Done.
Thanks, Oliver. In answer to your question about a favourite Smash Bros game, well, the classic Super Smash Bros on Nintendo 64 was the start of it all for me. I remember having a lot of fun with the adventure mode, but of course the versions to come out after this had more fighters, features, stages, and better graphics, of course. So the latest Wii U version is worth a mention too. What about you, Rad?
Well, I think any are pretty enjoyable if you like the Smash Brothers style of game. And I certainly am keen to see what Super Smash Brothers Ultimate is like when it comes out. Despite the fact that my beautiful son, Waluigi, has been snubbed. Justice for Waluigi, am I right?
Rad, I think we may all have to come to terms with the fate of Waluigi and move on with our lives. And move on to the question of what game is good on the Wii U. I would say, aside from Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U, there are actually heaps of good games on the Wii U. From the cute strategy of Pikmin 3, the platforming fun of Rayman Legends, or Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, to the splatty shooty shenanigans of Splatoon. Oh, and all the enchanting adventure of The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
Plus, if you're a Mario fan, there's Super Mario 3D World, New Super Mario Bros. U, and the level design hijinks of Super Mario Maker. And let's not forget the Wii U's version of the classic kart racer, Mario Kart 8.
And hey, some of those Wii U titles have ended up on the Switch in some form too.
This is true. Alrighty, well, let's take a looky-loo at another question, shall we? Oh, how about this one from Queen Geek in the Holy Geekdom? Greetings, GGSP. I am the Oween Geek, and I have these questions to ask you. 1, do you have any roleplay games like Subnautica that are for iOS? 2, do you have any tips for new Stardew Valley players? 3, do you know of any iOS games that are like Stardew Valley? My sincerest thanks to you. P.S. Gem, do these.
Ha!
P.S. Rad, do these. Bye!
Why, thank you, Queen Geek. If you're looking for games like Subnautica on mobile, you might enjoy other water-based survival games such as Ocean Nomad Raft Survival or maybe Don't Starve Shipwrecked. It's hard to find games as deep and complex as Subnautica for mobile platforms, but those two are a pretty good start.
Well, you know what they say, you can't have a good finish without a good start. As for some Stardew Valley tips for new players, well, there is much to consider. Aside from sowing as many seeds as you can as soon as you can, I'd recommend trying to plant crops in square formations around sprinklers as soon as you're able to craft them to save time watering each day.
Also, plant your crops with the calendar in mind. Seasonal plants will die at the end of that season, so take note of how much time you have and plan ahead. Oh, what else? There's so many tips to think of. Maybe we should call Darren and get his top tip.
Maybe also his bottom tip.
Why not?
Aloha, Darren speaking.
Hey, Darren, just one quick thing. We're wondering what your #1 top tip is for new Stardew Valley players.
Oh, just one? I would recommend trying to complete the community centre objectives as early as possible. Not only do you get some nice rewards for doing this, but it helps unlock parts of the game. Aim to familiarise yourself with all the bundles and what season the items may relate to. There's nothing more frustrating than getting rid of a rare or seasonal item only to realise it's needed in a bundle and you might not be able to get it again for ages.
Oh, well, thank you, Darren. That is one top tip.
My pleasure. And in general, I say don't be afraid to check out online guides for other tips or to find out what something is. There's no shame in admitting the limits of one's human abilities.
Thanks, Darren. Bye.
So long.
He's not wrong, you know. As for some iOS games similar to Stardew, well, Stardew Valley itself is actually now available on mobile. But you might also enjoy other similar games, such as Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, one of the farming simulator games, or Blocky Farm.
Right, well, Rad, let's have a look-see at another video, shall we? This one is from Marcus.
GGSP. I've got 2 questions for you. Question 1, should I get PlayStation VR and would you recommend it and what's the best game? And question 2, what's your favourite game on PlayStation? Thanks. Bye.
Oh, thanks, Marcus. In answer to your question about whether you should get PlayStation VR and whether we'd recommend it, well, first off, it's worth mentioning that VR gaming is generally not recommended for very young players, especially for long play sessions.
And while there are some really fun games available for PSVR, it's not something I personally spend a lot of time with. Out of what I tried, I think Astrobot Rescue Mission is probably my favourite. Moss is also quite beguiling, and Pixel Ripped 1989 makes use of the VR medium in a pretty creative way. Oh, and Beat Saber is a pretty satisfying rhythm game.
Oh, I really liked Moss. But VR can also be quite expensive, especially considering there's not a huge amount of choice and variety in the games currently available compared to other gaming platforms. So it's all about you and your grown-ups weighing up whether you think it's suitable and worth it for you. And PSVR is just one of the options available. There's other options out there too.
100% agree with you there, Rad. As for our favourite PlayStation games, well, some classic faves for this latest generation of PlayStation, I'd say would be Little Big Planet 3, Ratchet & Clank, and Ni no Kuni 2. But then there's also heaps that are available on PS4 that aren't necessarily PlayStation exclusives. From Rayman Legends to No Man's Sky, Rocket League, FIFA, Minecraft, the list goes on. It's just too hard to choose one favourite. It depends what kind of mood you're in.
And you know, Jem, I think I'm in the mood for another video question. Let's check out this one from Ben.
Will there be any new characters coming up on Super Mario Odyssey?
Thanks, Ben. Now, will there be any new characters coming up on Super Mario Odyssey? I'm not sure. I mean, the updates to Super Mario Odyssey that I've seen have more been in the form of new game modes, like Luigi's Balloon World, and new outfits and things of that nature.
Unless that's what Ben was getting at? If you mean will there be more character outfits, well, that's highly possible. Otherwise, I haven't heard about any specific plans to add more characters to the main game.
Right. On that note, I believe we're fresh out of time. If you have a question, Mundo, you'd like to unite with an answer, Rooney, head over here and send it in. And all of our fine video questionnaires that we featured today can expect to receive their GGSP pin mighty soon.
Well, that was some top-notch answer rustling, Jem, if I do say so myself.
Some fine rustling indeed. Rad loves to rustle. In 1998, the PlayStation 1 was home to the iconic purple dragon named Spyro. Though small in size, Spyro's personality left a big mark on gamers, spawning a trilogy of games by developer Insomniac, as well as many other sequels and spin-offs by other developers. Although I think it's probably fair enough to assume younger gamers today will recognise the feisty Firestarter more from the Skylanders series.
But not for long, because Toys for Bob, the developer of Skylanders, has created a remastered version of Spyro's original trilogy dubbed Spyro Reignited Trilogy.
Flame on! Spyro Reignited Trilogy brings a new modern look and feel to Spyro's first 3 games: Spyro the Dragon, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, and Spyro Year of the Dragon. Gone are those harsh polygon edges, now replaced with smoother, more visually pleasing character models and textures. Not only that, but the animations have been given an update.
Simple?
Injecting a sense of personality and individuality into every friend and foe you come across.
But golf will be more than a match for you. Bring it on, shorty.
Every character looks like they were plucked right out of a cartoon. I particularly liked the dragons that you rescue from their crystal prisons in the first game. They feel very unique, each with their own styles and mannerisms, as they provide you with helpful tips and tricks.
Watch the dragonfly, Spyro. His color indicates his power.
As there are so many to be rescued, it's nice to have a bit of variety to break up the repetitive collectathon.
Yeah, add hoarding to Spyro's list of favourite things to do. Right up there with scorching small creatures and headbutting things. All three games' core progression relies on collecting enough of something, whether it's gems, dragons, talismans, or eggs. It's not the most creative of storytelling devices, but I found the environments you visit were just so gorgeous that I didn't mind the scramble. There's also just something really satisfying about smashing up the decor.
The worlds are very beautiful, full of colour and life, and worthy of a few slow camera pans to let it all sink in. The level design is kept very similar to the originals, but with a fresh coat of paint, so old hats at the series won't have too much trouble settling back into familiar territory, while newcomers of the game get to gawk at the beauty this world has to offer and discover the hidden treasure within. For a while, that gamer instinct to explore and collect was enough to keep me interested. But after a while, I felt like I was just going through the motions without any drive to progress.
I found myself in the same place, particularly in the first game, before the addition of extra objectives and optional challenges that the second and third games introduced. And I'll admit at times I wondered how 6-year-old Jem managed to get through this repetitive slog. But then I'd start to glide or charge, and that nostalgic magic would come right back to me. Spyro moves a lot more smoothly than his previous incarnation, but with the same feeling of excited energy.
Maybe it's because I didn't play the original, but I found his movements to be a bit erratic and hard to control, which took a lot of the fun out of it for me. I think this is mostly down to the way the camera lags as you move, particularly when charging. This meant sharp corners or narrow turns were a nightmare to wrangle first go, because I'd have to stop and readjust the camera or risk flying blind. I have said before that platformers aren't my strong suit, but add wonky controls to that, and let's just say that the Dragon Realm's sheep population may never recover.
I definitely ran into a few problems there too, but my biggest issue control-wise cropped up during the flying sections. Gliding short distances was a breeze, no pun intended, but the prolonged flying sections and mini-games felt really clunky, and I was constantly going into the control menu to try and find a scheme that I was comfortable with. Though it was through doing this that I discovered the option to flip to the classic controls, for those who want an authentic feeling Spyro experience.
You can do this with the music as well. You can change up the music to composer Stuart Copeland's classic score, or his updated one at any point, which offers up a nice retro feel, while still taking advantage of the modern updates. And as a musician myself, it was a treat to hear how they fleshed out the original tracks while still honouring its iconic identity.
At its core, I think that's what I love the most about the Reignited Trilogy. It stays true to what made Spyro such a timeless series. It takes what made it so popular, its characters, its sense of adventure, the joy of collecting treasure, and improves on it, brightening, tightening, and breathing life into an old series to deliver it to a new generation of gamers. So I'm giving Spyro Reignited Trilogy 4 out of 5 rubber chickens.
A big downside to staying true to an old formula is that you take on the problems that it already had. When the original trilogy was released, it was new and different. But 20 years on, and the gaming scene has seen all kinds of improvements and advancements, each challenging new titles to live up to the ones that have come before. In this day and age, issues like wonky controls and lagging cameras stand out a lot more, and unfortunately the updated visuals weren't enough to distract me from those problems. I'm giving it 2.5 out of 5 rubber chickens.
Last one there's a Nork!
Did you guys know that after creating the Spyro trilogy, Insomniac Games went on to create the Ratchet & Clank series? What a run!
They sure know how to make a good platformer.
Next week on GGSP, an Australian classic in video game form as we review Stormboy.
Plus the homemade celebrity shenanigans of YouTuber's Life OMG edition.
And I get to go inside Microsoft's Inclusive Technologies Lab.
Until then, be nice, have fun, and keep gaming. Gem out.
Rat out.
Goose out.